Okay. Give me the go sign and I'll start talking.
Go for it.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for attending tonight's webinar, co-sponsored by Musicians for Musicians and the Manhattan Producers Alliance. Tonight's topic will be the art of hearing what you see, composing music for film, television, theater, and dance. What's especially wonderful about tonight is that I, as a past member and director or what have you of a group called Manhattan Producers Alliance, have succeeded in persuading several members of that group to participate in tonight's presentation, which is through a different group, Musicians for Musicians. So I consider this a personal triumph, whatever the hell else happens this evening. So we'll have two presenters tonight, I hope. One is currently effectively on Zoom. The other, we're waiting to see what happens. The gentleman who'll probably be doing most of the talking tonight is Christopher North. He's a Texas-born composer, songwriter, and multi-instrumental performer. He works mostly as a film composer and has also composed and written for orchestra, theater, dance, and children's television. As a sideman, he has played bass for Quincy Jones, the Dixie Chicks, and Rosanna Cash, and performed both in orchestras and on Broadway. He is also active as an educator, as an assistant professor in the Berklee College of Music Songwriting Department, and that's since 2019. And he has taught at the 92nd Street Y in New York since the fall of '97. When and if she's able to join us, we will also have Athens Greek-born composer Eleni Lomvardou, who has written music for numerous international theatrical productions, as well as television game shows and primetime series aired on Greek national television. She's composed music for short films and documentaries that have received awards in American and international film festivals. She's also collaborated with New York City choreographers, written music for dance works, and some of these works have been associated with festivals in New York City and in Washington, D.C. She is a bicontinental person, meaning she has residences in both Greece and in New York City. And at the present, owing to the pandemic, she has been locked down in her New York City residence, where she has less of her really cool equipment. So that may account for some technical difficulties this evening. But in any case, I'd like to turn the floor over, assuming he's back, to Mr. Christopher North.
Good evening. Really great to be here and really great to share the Zoom space with Eleni. We've actually shared a stage before too. There was one really cool gig that we got to share in the West Village. That was a while back. I guess, one question I would just like to ask, I mean, I can see most of your hands here. I'd love to know who I'm talking to, and that's kind of helpful. Composers in the house, raise your hand, good. Great. Musicians in the house, which is probably everybody, right? I'll also open that up to multi-instrumental musicians, because that's another thing that I kind of tend to talk about. Okay, that's a few, great. Let's see, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, I think that was the main thing. Eleni, do you want to say anything to the crowd here? Just now that you're good to have you. You're good to see you here.
Yeah, it's nice to be here. I'm hoping that I'm going to make it through the entire presentation, but I've got some issues with my gear here, and I'm struggling. But anyway, yeah, I was thinking that I think maybe it would be good to know if people that are watching us today and attending this presentation, if they are any familiar with film scoring, if they've done work for film, either composed music for film or theater or or dance, because I don't know whether we should start from the basics or go to skip the basics and go to more advanced stuff.
it seems like we got a pretty decent amount of folks in here that know some stuff. I guess the main thing is more the technical aspects of film composing, whether that's being the musician side or being the ones that's delivering the film or being part of the film composing team. Is that just show of hands? Does that seem like a pretty fair assessment? Yes, some knowledge, and I think the elephant in this Zoom room is what the heck we're doing now. I mean, like, and how to not only do this work at this time, but also imagine steps to going forward. And I think that's something to kind of keep in mind. We do have a chat going here, so feel free to put any kind of questions on in the chat there. I guess the even though it's a little on the nose, I do see one kind of thing we could start off with, which is some trailers for films coming up, and maybe that would be an interesting way to talk about what we're working on right now. Eleni, I'm double checking. I've got all your stuff here. The trailer for the one that's forthcoming, I believe, 1 second, don't answer me, is the Kim Miri trailer,
yes,
correct?
You're right. Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I think that's what I'm gonna start off with. I'll start off with that. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't, mention a couple of things though before we kind of play some of Eleni's music. Not to be once again too on the nose, but the simple fact is, I'm really glad that we're doing this space together in advance of International Women's Day. And so I as a professor who teaches lots of women, and as a person who's learned from lots of women and probably collaborated with more women than men, actually, I feel like that would be remiss if we didn't mention that. And yet we've got lots of guys in the room, so I want to have a shout out to the women in the room, and hopefully let everybody know that we got your back and that this is how we do. So here's Eleni. Just 1 second, I'll be sharing screens. This is a trailer for. Do you want to set this up a little bit, Eleni?
Yeah,
do you want to set
sure.
this one up? Great.
So, Kim Mihri, it's Turkish. It's a Turkish production, and it's translated to "Who is Mihri" in English. It's a work in progress. We had started working on this right before the pandemic hit, and when there was the pandemic and the outbreak, that had gone unfortunately on pause. So this is a feature creative documentary written and directed by Berna Cenkalp. It's the life and work of the first female painter in Turkey. Her name was Mihri Rasim. She lived from 1886 to 1954. She was the first woman painter to actually make a living as a professional painter. Traveled to Europe, to Rome, to Paris to get further education, and helped co-found the first fine arts school for women in Turkey in 1914. In the 20s, she moved to New York, where she worked, exhibited her paintings in New York City galleries. And she actually was a pioneer in her field, promoted and helped female students study, paint, work, exhibit their work, and stood up for women's rights and equality in fine arts education in a very challenging time, I would say. So this is a documentary. It involves shooting, animation, some animation sequences, and it's, as I said, it's a work in progress right now.
Fantastic. So here we go. If all cross your fingers, here we go. Should be seeing that there.
Good.
Adam, looking good. Great. Here we go.
Mihri'yi bu kadar merak etmiş tek kişi ben olamam. Benden önce bu konunun peşine düşmüş insanlar olsa gerek.
İsmini duydum, evet. Mihri Müşfik olarak duydum.
Türkiye'de resim sanatının gelişimindeki belki en önemli figürlerden bir tanesi.
İnas Mektebi'nin eğitim kadrosu içindeki
Evet.
tek kadın.
Tek kadın.
Okula ilk kayıtta 26 kız öğrenci kaydoluyor.
Böylece kadınlar erkeklerle aynı düzeyde, hatta daha avantgard bir eğitim alabildiler.
Çok güçlü, çok özgür bir kadın.
Resim için yaşıyor. Portreleri için yaşıyor.
Daha duyarlı, yüreğiyle beraber gidiveren.
Dolayısıyla sanatın daha iyi yapacağı bir ortam arayışı içinde.
İstanbul'dan ayrılıp Roma'ya gitmesi, oradan ayrılıp Paris'e gitmesi.
Orada Mihri Hanım'ın görebileceği daha fazla örnek vardı, daha fazla sanat vardı.
En önemli soru bence eserleri nerede?
Bildiğimiz tek nüsü şu ana kadar ele geçirdiğimiz.
Öyle bir nü bir erkekten çıkmaz. Et yok orada, kesinlikle yok. Ruh var.
Yani eserin orijinalini görmek bambaşka bir şey tabii.
O dönemde öğrenilerek resim yapılıyorken Mihri Hanım da düşünerek resim yapmanın olduğunu görürüz.
Kök salacağı yeri seçebilmek isteyen bir kadın. Güzel konuşuyor, insanlara ilgi gösteriyor.
Cesaretinin de hayranıyım.
Acaba nerede ördü, nerede gömüldü falan. Ondan ziyade acaba ne yaptı?
Kim Mihri diye bir soru geliyor. Hepimiz diyorum. Kim Mihri? Hepimiz.
That was really great.
So I had to
Sorry, 1 second. Sorry.
yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I had to, because she lived in Turkey, but she also traveled in Europe and United States. I had to blend and mix in my score Western music, and that's jazz with Eastern music. And so I used some Eastern traditional instruments like the oud, santur, the Turkish drum, and also I used some electronics, which I usually do.
That was really great. And so, this is all coming out. What's the next step? What's the next steps for you?
Well, the thing is that they have finished with all the shootings, because they had to shoot in Paris, in Rome. They came to New York, and so they finished with that. Now what's pending is the animation sequences, which is it takes some time. I mean, it takes time under normal circumstances. Imagine now that things are not moving that normal in a normal pace. So they have to finish up with this, and then we have to go and turn all the cues into make the recordings of the live instruments and set the times exactly of the music cues according to the picture. And there's a lot of work still to be done, but it's mostly a monothematic score, so that means it's one theme that we use a lot of variations throughout the movie. So the most difficult part, which is like to agree with the director on the theme, on the main theme of the movie, that's done, and everything else will come
Right.
after the pandemic, I guess.
It's so interesting because there's a couple of things I'm thinking about to kind of move the conversation on to the next thing. And yet you mentioned animation, which made me have no doubt of what I need to do next. I think one of the things that both Eleni and I have in common is music for docs, music for feature films, music for dance, music for theater. And I do have a clip from a dance thing I want to play today, as well as a trailer for a trailer for a Zoom horror film, which may be, but for now, actually something completely different, which is I want to play a clip The challenges of scoring to animation really are another whole thing. You know, we come in on different parts of the film. I'm actually right now working on two features that should be shot this fall. You know what I mean? One of them's probably one of the bigger budget things I've ever been involved with, which would be incredible. You know, there's other films where we come at the last second, but one that always has its unique challenges, which are kind of related to some things in dance and theater, is making some music for animation. So I'm going to play a little clip from a film of mine. This is from Two Trains Running, which was a Grammy-nominated film for Best Music Film. Follows two sets of blues fans seeking Skip James and Son House, and they happen to find them on the same day that three civil rights workers were killed within 6 miles of each other in June of '64. So I'm hoping that I play just the right amount of this clip, but if I don't hit that, then there'll be a little bit of stuff that's a little bit more disturbing, having to do with civil rights things in '64. But if I play the clip just right, it should do it. So, but I think that just to set this clip up a little bit, there's a particular blues artist whose father was a reverend that helped out some of these blues fans, which included none other than John Fahey. So there's got a lot of interesting blues stuff. This happens to be me playing all the instruments as a multi-instrumentalist. That's one of the things I do in this realm as well in other realms. We'll talk a little bit more later about playing with live instruments. It features a single note from a 1925 Gibson banjolele, which I think is actually right there. Just as a little bit of tension here. So here we go. Let me set this clip up and boom, right there. And great. Fantastic, y'all. And you know, of course, if y'all have any questions, make sure to put them in the thing. 1 second. Yeah, this is about a 3-minute clip. So you'll hear a little bit of blues. It'll be a little bit of a setup for that, and then we can kind of move on to other things. This is Two Trains Running, directed by none other than Sam Pollard.
And that'll be a way to get along.
Driving around in a New York bug with a black minister was perhaps not the smartest thing we could have done, but he was willing to do it, and so were we.
There was one episode that's really indelible in my mind. We were going way out in the field, totally rural, just out in the cotton fields. And there was a pickup truck with a couple of white men lounging on the hood. And Reverend Wilson said, "Stop here and I'll ask." We didn't want any part of this. But if he said we're going to ask, we're going to ask. We stopped the car and the Reverend opened the door and got up and said, "I'm looking for such and such a street. Can you tell me where it is?" They looked at him and then they went back to talking. And he said to them, "Look here, I'm talking to you. I'm looking for such and such a street." The silence was palpable. They looked at him and they said, "Go down the road so far, take a left and go so far." And the Reverend touched his hat. He said, "Thank you. I'm much obliged to you, gentlemen." Nodded his head, got back in the car, drove away.
We get to Bentonia. We find some of Skip James's relatives who try to help us, but really can't. Even relatives of James find him hard to pin down. An aged uncle tells us that James lives in a town or city near Tunica, Mississippi. The first letter of the name of this town is, he thinks, D, Dunkirk, Dubs, Dundee, Denton, but he's really not sure. Of one thing he is certain: the end of the rainbow is near Tunica.
That's the clip.
Very nice, really nice. And that's also, I see, a creative documentary, right?
Yeah, it's a documentary. It's all about blues and civil rights. And it was the pluck of a Gibson banjolele that kind of provided just a single note and a little bit of tension for that. Had a lot of fun working on that one. But it is different. There's something that when you're dealing with archival films, with much older films, then they don't have footage. The animation as a brought a new challenge. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. It was a great work on that film. Any I mean, we're still, we're going to keep on sharing some stuff and keep on talking about stuff. And any questions, just pop them in the chat.
I have a question.
Sure, Dave. Great.
Yeah. So, how important is it to have a character theme across the board? Like whether you're doing that was kind of like a documentary-esque kind of film, fiction film. Is that like always something that's like definitely needed? This character theme, or what would you say about that? Some words on that.
I'll speak to that one and then I'll turn it over to Eleni. But in this particular film, there was kind of this idea of the ghosts, the ghost of these blues guys. You know what I mean? And are they alive? Are they dead? I mean, I've already kind of given away, and some of these folks, they were found.
Yeah.
So that's another whole thing. But yet, just kind of where are they, and all the mystique that had to do with it. And there was a lot of talk about, how I could talk about that mystery. But this film in particular told several stories and was recontextualized by the present, which basically meant that it wasn't the same kind of thing as other kinds of films. Other kinds of narrative films, and even the one I'm working on right now, which I'll play a clip from shortly after, it's very clear that there's a main theme or little sub-themes, but ultimately they're all going to come from the same cloth. Which basically means they all need to be able to live with each other. You need to have transition materials. They can talk to each other. They can be in counterpoint. They can do all those kinds of things. I'll say one more thing about my process before turning on Eleni is that, for me, when I'm collaborating with folks, first of all, the thing I always say to young composers, not that there's any in this room, is you got to know, for young film composers, you got to know music well, you got to know collaborating well, and you got to know film well. Which means that you're not going to meet anybody under 30 who can do all those things. It's just not going to happen. My job in high school was working in a video store. And I recently figured it out that there was times where I was clocking 15 to 20 movies a week in the summer. You know what I mean? So I grew up as a kid actor. So like anyway, the whole point is, sometimes in that first meeting with the director, I have to figure out, do they want me to be part of the crew? Do they want me to be, a fellow filmmaker? Am I part of the post, or am I another whole character? And I have to figure that out really fast, because sometimes
how the music is going to function.
Right, and there's also, or they want me to come as an auteur, as another artist that just comes in and brings this whole other thing.
Wow.
And you make the wrong choice early in those first couple of drafts aren't going to be good, man. It's just not going to. So the thing I was kind of saying is that my first part of my process is I'm figuring out sounds. And I'm figuring out themes. So I'll be writing themes. I'll take the script. I'll just walk around. I'll just play something on a piano. I'll just play something on a guitar. I'll just hum stuff. I just got a rhythm. Then I'm working out sounds because I have to deliver a produced score. So I have to know what those sounds are going to be. And if I'm doing my job right, then I'll sketch in the sounds and it'll create a theme. I'll sketch in the themes and it'll come up with a sound or a phraseology that'll actually work to picture. And eventually those two processes kind of meet. And all of a sudden, I'm up to snuff with the sounds, with the themes, But it doesn't mean that it always comes out the way I planned. That's for sure. I'll move on then. So, Eleni, anyone you want to chime in about the one theme, or how do you develop themes, or your process about that?
For me, the key to working in a film and working successfully, I think, when you score is you have to go with the director's flow. So here's the boss, you have to let him create the path, and then you just have to follow. The thing is that you need to be able to understand him well, right from the beginning, so that you don't waste time. And also, you have to understand that your job is to serve his vision, which is the film's vision. And so I get involved with the director and with the his meetings with the producers and with everyone else involved very, very early on. I don't wait, even though the music comes, it's a post-production thing. I try to be there from, if it's possible, day one, so that I get to understand the director's mind as much as I can, the way they think. Sometimes, when they try to explain things and they try to be musical about it and speak in musical terms, they end up giving you the completely opposite, putting you the completely opposite direction from what they want. So you have to be somewhat, say, serve as a psychologist, say, and try to read their minds and, understand what the behind the words, what's going on in their head. And I think once you do that, everything else comes, easy.
Thanks for that. That was really great. Eleni, do you want to set up? I think we'll keep on moving with another clip. Of course, as I said, just pop a question in there if you want to. Do you want to set up Shadows of the World? Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great.
So this is in post-production. It's almost done, but not quite. It's a short film, Greek short film, written and directed by Marios Papageorgiou. It's a futuristic sci-fi film. The story, in a few words, is it's about four men that find themselves trapped underground at the basement of the ruins of a building right after a really great disaster that destroyed Earth and all humanity. And so down there in their struggle for survival, they end up killing each other. It follows the footsteps of silent films, so it's only using picture and music. There's no dialogue in it. It has a bit of surrealistic aesthetics, and it's to me it sort of reminds me of David Lynch's movies. That surreal atmosphere, especially his dream sequences that he has very often in his films. And so this clip now is a clip that is at the end of the film. It's showing two out of the four men that as they are on the ground slowly dying, they have flashbacks from pictures of what they were doing at the time of the catastrophe. And this is just two out of the four men. I can't hear you, Christopher, if you're...
I know, too many windows. I got about 15 windows open. Okay. Here we go with Shadows of, whatever you said, Shadows of the World. Here we go.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Really, really great.
Thank you.
Yeah, sounds wonderful too. And I've had the opportunity to score some silent films as well, and that's another whole interesting thing. But before I move on to that, any questions for Eleni or anything else you want to ask her? Go ahead and chime on in. I'm looking around. Oh, great, Dan. Sure, go for it.
Yeah, just a question. Like in film, were those real string players or were those samples?
No, it's real string player. It's a
Yeah,
viola
it sounded.
player, and also the voices. They are a mix of samples and live voices.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So actually, this score is divided in three parts. The first part is it's all electronics. The second part it's electronics, but I'm introducing also the viola sound and a little bit of the voices. And the third part, which is like the most you know emotional and dramatic and apocalyptic, then I have mostly the viola sound and the voices, and at the end titles, I introduce also a Byzantine style psalm to emphasize and magnify the apocalyptic and divine aspect of the story. But I had to use I felt that I had to use the viola sound live, use a player, so as to get most as far as the expression goes and emotion.
I love the viola there. The viola really, really spoke really well to me for that. That was wonderful. Yeah, no. I think what I'll do then is, just because we're on the subject of silent films, I have just a trailer for a short film that all of 7 minutes. It's a 7 minute short, but I won't play the whole thing. It's a trailer of a short film called Unpainted. And one thing that's kind of interesting about my life and my credits on IMDb is right next to this film, I scored a feature called Paint. So I scored Unpainted, and then I also scored Paint. But that film, Paint, was actually just released this January, had mostly a synth score, and this is something completely different. So this is just a trailer for just 1 second, let me get this going. Lots of windows. He's doing it. He's doing it. He's talking. He's sharing screens. He's doing all kinds of stuff here. Here we go. Unpainted. And 1 second. Here we go. And some of you may know there is a violinist named Christian Howes, and he's been around in New York and also other places. Both a really jazz improvisatory violinist, but also did some other kinds of businesses of remote strings and stuff like that. Here we go. This is Unpainted with Christian Howell on violin. So that's Unpainted, the trailer for Unpainted. And once again, it's an interesting thing to have music on the foreground, where you feel the pressure. I mean, it definitely feels different of a silent film. Did you experience that, Eleni? Eleni, just wow. I mean, well, I'll say one more thing, which is that I'm really looking forward to. I do have an octet version of this score that's ready to go to play, to have it all live with me conducting it, and I've got my streamers ready to go and my cue points ready to go, and so I'm just waiting. I'm just waiting for my chance to do this thing live. Eleni, did you find that, just as far as scoring a silent film and having the foreground? What was that?
Yeah. One question before I answer your question. So what we heard now, it was the violin. Was it any harp in it, or what else was?
Yeah, it was samples. It was harp, celeste, and then kind of essentially I limited myself to essentially an octet type arrangement. Actually, a nonet because it would be a double bass as well. Sorry.
Right.
And then there's a little bit of sonic haze
Mhm.
from a sound that I took from another film.
Mhm.
So that would probably be, I don't know if I'd even worry about that live, but just a little bit of sonic haze. And what it actually is it's a banjo pitched down and then put through some reverb and then kind of like a banjo sound, it's basically the sustains from a banjo sound that just kind of rings through it. And
Right.
it just had a little bit of an America kind of feel to just the haze, and it gave it something acousticy that was in a space. So it was kind of my pixie dust. That's what was going on. So I needed a little bit of pixie dust in the paint process, And one funny thing about that film is you actually get to watch paint dry in the film. So you actually get to watch paint dry, although it's time lapse, so it's over like a day. But you get to watch paint dry in a short film. But not to plug it too much, but it is interesting that film ended up winning some awards, not only for the score and some other stuff like that. So, it's always kind of an interesting moment of do you work on award-winning films or are you an award-winning composer? Well, this one is actually the one that took me into the official realm. So that's all I'll say about that. But any else, Eleni, about working on silent films? What was that like?
I think that's. I don't know if it's more challenging because actually, I find the most. I mean, that's as far as I go. I find the most challenging when I have to put music under dialogue. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
Because then you have to worry about the voices, the frequencies, the instrumentation, what to use and what not. So I think for me, working on silent films, which is also the documentary, the Dreaming of Haze Young, that's another documentary that I've scored. It's a Chinese and Greek co-production. That's also a documentary, and it's also just the picture and the music. It doesn't have any dialogue either. So
You know what I think I'm going to do? I want to play that one, but I kind of feel like I should probably play my other trailer because it's a horror trailer and it feels closer to what you just did with your other film, and it at least feels like we could. So I'm going to play this other trailer, and then we'll circle back to that one. Okay, is that right? And I think you've got a longer clip on that one. So
sure.
So this is so I'll set Dreaming. We'll come right back to Dreaming. First up is this is something I'm working on right now. So this is called The Dark Offerings. It's actually getting a lot of attention. It's a Zoom. It is a film that was shot in quarantine, written, shot, and directed in quarantine. It's essentially a demon takes over a Zoom situation. And even though that feels a little on the nose, it was only with the spotting session that this last week that I realized some of the sounds that I was remember I just had this chat about themes and sounds. The directors love the themes. It's working. It's totally working. I even have this idea of taking a freeze pedal, electroharmonics, and that essentially freezes some audio, but in a kind of an old school way. I've got granular synthesis effects freezing things. And then I have some different kind of instruments I'm going to use on the score. But as of this last week, I learned in the spotting session that the electronic sounds I was using are not actually working. So the effects was working, but the sound choices are working. And so I'll play this 1.5 minute trailer. It's a horror film, and I think we might be done with horror films for the day, which is another whole thing. That's at least what's kind of going on out there. This is called The Dark Offerings, and this is what I'm working on right now, and then we'll circle back 1 second, and boom. So watch out. Here we go. Horror film and all the other things that come with that.
You got any birthday plans?
I'm meeting up with some friends I haven't seen in a long time.
Good.
To Sophia, right? The loveliest woman that I've ever met, and someone who hasn't aged a day since high school.
Kiss ass! It's not gonna stop. It's gonna keep coming. And then, once it gets me, it's coming after you.
Yo, wait, did she just text me my own name?
Yep, did the exact same for me too.
This can't be happening. This can't be happening.
You have no choice, Sophia. You have to do this.
Man, where you been?
Is his mic on?
Yo, Jacob, can you hear me?
There is no escape.
Fortunately, if the demon has already attached itself to its offerings, there's really not much more we can do at this point.
You have got to do it now or we all die!
These people are not your friends!
Stay with each other.
You are in grave danger.
You could have picked 5 convicts that deserve to die. Do not pretend to be innocent.
We can't hold us anymore.
What the hell is happening?
So a little on the nose, but at least you kind of get it. But the one thing I will say is that I learned this week is that the demon is really old. So it's actually going to be Hammer Dulcimer presenting the theme the first time, and that was like a big thing, that's kind of a thing. So just want to at least kind of move the high. We had the horror handoff, and whether or not we return to that, another thing. A little preview. I will play a little bit of a dance piece later that's actually in Zoom too. And interestingly enough, it also uses Hammer Dulcimer, which may be totally accidental or totally related or something about Hammer Dulcimer and Zoom is working. Eleni, I'm going to set up your dream again. So do you want to talk about that for a second here? Right? That was.
Which one?
Was it Dream?
Dreaming of Haze. Yeah.
Yeah. Give me one second here. Do you want to just set that up a little bit more?
Yeah, sure. So that's the Dreaming of Haze. That's the feature documentary that I was talking about before. It's a co-production, China and Greece. It was written and directed by Marinetta Criticou. This is basically a road trip movie in 6 typical cities of the province of Zhejiang, that's in southeastern China. And it's actually a journey in time from a modern city to an ancient water town. So this has no dialogue either. It's just a picture and the music. And the interesting thing about this, and that's you will see that on the clip here, is that it goes from busy big cities, the life and motion in big cities, to water towns, small villages by the water that are very quiet, fishermen, and so the music had to follow the pace and had to change from scene to scene, and you can see that in this clip now.
Thanks a lot. And it's always a little awkward when you go from horror to anything, but at least we're here we go. 1 second, everybody can see that? Great. And I'll start from the top of this one. This is a clip, right? That's it, right? Here we go.
Yeah, it starts in the beginning. It's the 3.5 first minutes.
Got it. really, really great. Really great.
Thank you. Thanks.
Love everything, the picture, the colors, the choices, the when to shift modes. Really great. Any questions on any of that?
Was that a flute, the high instrument?
Yeah. Actually, this is all samples that I've played, and tried. I mean, I had to give it the Chinese sound. So.
Good sound.
Really, really great. Yeah, I love the shifting modes. It was really just all the things you hit, what you hit, how you hit it, and the color choices too. Really great. I know we're going to keep on maybe playing another clip or two, and then kind of open it up to even more questions. I think the next thing I'll do then, since I mentioned before, is I'll go ahead and another silent film in the sense of a piece for dance. I'm just going to play the first minute of this other Zoom piece I worked on. So this is something I've worked with Artichoke Dance Company here in Brooklyn a good couple of times. I actually believe one other Manhattan Producers Alliance composer named Mike Sayer has also done some work with them too. So we actually have this in common. I think what the choreographer did is had a couple of different composers do the same music, do this different takes on this whole thing. So I'll just play a little bit of this just as kind of the next little thing. This is once again Artichoke Dance Company and a piece called Isolation Connection. And this was funded in part by some arts cares money too. So that was another whole thing of something that happened last year. And here we go. And as I said, the use of hammer dulcimer in both this and the other piece is either completely accidental or completely intentional. So we'll find out. Here we go. Just a minute or so of this. And that's just a little clip of that. Once again, it explored this weird world we're all living in. And is the glitch bad? I try to make the glitch beautiful. Where at first it's annoying. It's like, what is it stopping? Is this intentional? I can't tell what's going on. And I actually really enjoy art and films where there's open state, closed state, times where you don't know what's going on, times where you do know what's going on. And I think that was some of the thing I kind of enjoyed in this piece was just the glitch. Is the glitch bad, or is the glitch good, or is it beautiful actually? You know, and that's kind of the whole thing. I
have a question. I have a question for you, Chris.
Sure.
How do you find composing for dance different than composing for film or theater? I mean, what are the differences as far as the
Some of my answer has to. I'm looking up the names of the dancers too, because that's remiss that I don't know that. Artichoke Dance Company once again, but yeah, I think one of the things for me about my answer has to go back to a little bit to my earliest days of working with dance. I grew up in Texas, born in Austin, grew up in Texas, and although I did score a couple of short film or two in college, I didn't know any filmmakers. So really, all of my scoring language all came from doing music from dance. And the one thing about dancers is I happened to hang out with a lot of modern dancers, and they were just so excited about any sound and gesture. And I think that was the thing that was most exciting about me. And as I was all tripped up on notes and rhythms and tightness, and they were so excited by just the sound of something. And I think that kind of informs my scoring approach. Is like I'm always thinking about sounds and rhythms, and yet there's kind of two worlds, and they eventually kind of collide. Theater is somewhat similar, but theater's one of the things about theater that I love is theater has things about it that are similar to documentary film. Is that these in theater they're going to live with that music in a way on stage that's inspiring to them that you're not going to find out till later. So what'll happen is they'll 6 months into the run or a couple months in the run, they'll be like, oh yeah, there's this one note right in this little thing between the second and third act, and that really helps me get my motivation going. And I love that stuff. And in documentary film, you're scoring somebody's life, and then you get to meet the person, and have them respond to it, and there's a reality to it that's very different. So dancers, it's kind of all about the sound and the vibe and the rehearsal. Whether or not I'm playing live with them, that's one thing, or it's a recording or whatever, or there's also a little bit of control you're gonna have to let go, because some specifics of timing, I've gotten in trouble before because you have things that are looser, and then yet when the dancers get confused and it's just like, and yet you just want to be the conductor and just like go, no, this is where it goes, and you dance here, and yet you can't always do that. So there's like letting go. Theater, you get this cool thing of this trade-off where you get to meet the actors and the process and the sits probe and the whole, and then documentary film, you get to meet their actual people. And then the other thing, the last little thing before I turn it over, is the occupational hazard, especially in New York, of living intimately, scoring a feature film, seeing a character actor, seeing him on the train, walking up to him like I know him, and I scare the crap out of him, and he goes off and running. Because he's like, why are you, I'm like, oh no, I'm sorry. I've been scoring you for like the last 6 months, and now I've scored you for the third time, and I didn't mean to startle you. We've shared some credits, and I'm acting like I know you because I've been staring at your face for the last 6 months or 3 different films, Anyway, what would you say about some of that stuff?
Excuse me?
What would you say about some of that stuff? Any thoughts on that?
I agree. I mean, with dance, it's the main difference I think with dance is that you work, you create and you compose beforehand. So they have to have the music in order to to choreograph mostly. With film, you come afterwards. With theater, I think with theater is almost together, like at the same time. As the play grows and as it's being made, you are there, and you are almost like one more actor. I see music in a play as an extra actor. That helps, set the pace, the rhythm, and as you said, it helps with even with the actresses' lines sometimes. I've had one incident when an actor came up to me and said, you know what, I sort of like froze at some point. I forgot the line. I heard the melody in the background music in the cue, and and it came to me. So I think that's the main difference for me.
No, really true. And we've talked about a couple of things that are darker, horror films, and also the realities of Zoom life, and thinking about what's next. I would like to play a little bit of something that touches on all these things. This is the opening to a film called Cracked Up, which is about some really horrible things. It's a documentary by Michelle Ezrick, who I actually met at the Woodstock Film Festival, and then flash forward 5 years later, I'm scoring a film This is Daryl Hammond's story, and this is one of those things where there was an aspect of this that did have to do with some temp music, which is another thing we can kind of talk about. There's a particular instrument called a guitar viol, which is a bowed guitar. A couple of big time film composers use and play that. Tyler Bates, and the guy who did Game of Thrones, and a couple of other folks. And so this is just me, multi-tracked, but I'm perhaps a little bit of a lighter note, switching modes, but to a comedian in a doc, talking about some things that were not so pleasant a long time ago, and back to the multi-instrumental thing, and also a film directed by a woman. And then maybe we'll kind of open, and maybe see about there's another clip that you want to play, Eleni, and after that we kind of open it up to questions.
I don't know if we have time for questions and answers, so we'll play it by ear.
Cool. Yeah.
But what you said now about switching modes, that's actually what a film composer does, switches modes all the time. So.
Yeah, on a dime. And when I think about other things about my background that helped me as a collaborator as well. I mean, I'm a singer, I'm a bass player, so I also have this crazy idea, like Sting or Paul McCartney, that I can actually hold the whole show, or I can just be a bass player and love just being an accompanist. I love to just show up and just be a bass player. And that's one of my favorite things to do. And I really feel like I'm multimodal. I love being a leader, and I love being a collaborator and a follower, but on a dime, if I need to switch to being a leader, I'll do it on a dime. So that's the other interesting thing about this profession. And sometimes you don't know what your role is on a film until you're in the room with everybody. And then you still got to find out who actually is the one pulling more of the strings, which is another whole aspect of psychology. But this is at least just another kind of a clip that may open up this conversation one more time here before we go.
Looks like it's that one. We're certain that I lived there. Wow. My mother, she used to just stand there and stare out the window. Sit on the front and the side. And then every once in a while, she'd turn back and look at me like this, like she was trying to figure out the plot of a movie in advance. Basically, what she was doing was making up her mind that I had to go, Otherwise, she'd be locked in that house forever.
And that's a documentary on Daryl Hammond called "Cracked Up," and that was at least another little clip there. Really, Eleni, you sure you don't have another one when we play? What's even a little bit of maybe another trailer or something like that?
Can I say something?
Sure.
Yeah.
Great. Sure.
Yeah.
Just another perspective how you can compose music is in my case. I'm an improviser, and I don't like to be told to do this or that, because when you improvise, you make your decisions in the moment. So I was lucky being on 3, maybe 5 indie documentary movies or short featured movies in Japan and here in New York, just by meeting people on the street when I was a street musician. They liked the sound of the saxophone. Hey, could you do some music to it? So what I did was very simple, not all the electronics and studio work. It was just, they took me to a studio. I watched the sequence, the film, the score, and played to it. And like 2-3 tracks, very intuitive and whatever I felt in that moment. And I was always so lucky that they liked it. And what happened is that the only thing what happened is usually one track, and then the producer or the director came, could you do this? Could you change this? Could you omit this? Could you play louder, and blah, blah, blah. And it worked very fine. And I think another reason why they tried to have music like this is because it's also cheaper to produce and to pay. So it's just to share that that's how I composed music in the moment. And I was so lucky that the people liked it, and the post-production was almost zero.
I'll chime in with just one thing, which I mean, there's so much of improvisation that's in my process. I think one of the things you're talking about, though, is about trust, and that basically they already knew what they wanted from you. And that's how even somebody would be able to, you think about all the things that Trent Reznor's done post 9 Inch Nails, what he just did for Mank, full orchestral, what he just did for Soul. At some point, there's a trust. This person can deliver and understands the whole thing. And that's like the first thing, because otherwise you're chasing the temp, which maybe that's another thing that, is another side of this whole conversation, which is that, the editors, filmmakers, before they know they've got you, or even on some films when they know they've got you, just to make everybody comfortable, they put in some temp music, and it's a natural thing where the eye and the ear get glued together, and it makes it really, really difficult to think outside of that box. There's sometimes where it's very helpful, especially for films where you got 2 or 3 weeks, because it gives you, but you still got to know, what do they like about the temp? That's the hardest thing to know, because otherwise you can think that they like one thing and they like something else, and you're even more off, because then you just don't even, Eleni, maybe you could speak to that. Temp, have you had much temp stuff to have to deal with?
The temp stuff is my nightmare. I hate it, because even when it's a lot worse than what you are proposing, they are used to it. They have gotten used to it. So, once the brain gets used to it, hearing that specific music or sound with that specific image, scene, then forget it. It's very difficult to, to tell them otherwise and to convince them otherwise. But as you're saying, sometimes it's helpful, because, when the director doesn't have any musical knowledge, and maybe what they're saying is completely off what they're trying to describe musically. If they use some like music cues as examples, it makes your job a lot faster, I would say. The point is to not let them listen to it for a very, very long time. I mean, take it out of the picture like fast, whatever they're using, it has got to go fast before they get used to it. That's what I think.
Love to answer any other questions. I know we're right at time here. Great. Dan, you guys got a question there?
Yeah, thanks. Eleni, you were saying, I have a question about dance, writing music for dance. So you were saying that a lot of times the music has to come first because the choreographer needs your music.
Yes.
Do you find that there's this interplay between they use your music with the dance piece and then they want to change, or you want to is there a changing process that goes on to the music as the dance piece gets developed?
Yes, there's going to be change no matter what, because in all these fields that we're talking about, in dance, in film, in theater, there's change, constant change. You have to be, ready and willing to make lots and lots and lots of changes constantly, because things, as they progress, as the choreographer progresses and they might see something. They will definitely change, a move or a sequence. And so you have to go along with it, I guess, which is not always easy. I mean, you have deadlines, you have openings, in theater also, but I think that's what, a film composer learns to do, make changes fast and, with no much trouble, I guess. I don't know, Chris, what do you think?
All of the above. Yeah. It's weird because looking at the time and also just thinking about anything we didn't cover, and also acknowledging the time and space we're in, is, this is a unique year. I remember exactly where I was a year ago when I heard the South by Southwest Festival was not going to go on. And that I was like, oh no, I knew that once that closed. I was born in Austin. I've been going to South by for a long time. This year, Sundance was all online, which provided a unique opportunity for anyone, anywhere to participate in those things. Slam Dance, I think, is still kind of going on. So there's a unique opportunity to watch films, get to know other new filmmakers, and there's even some really cool, networking things that are associated with that. So I think that's the one other thing that wasn't really touched on today is, yes, you have your filmmakers that you owe allegiance to, but you're constantly looking for the next job. So I'll be on a job, and then my assistants are doing intel on other filmmakers that I'm hoping to reach out to, and that work continues all the time. And that's part of the gig is networking. And speaking of that, I just realized I would love to make sure that Eleni gets a chance to share any links that you want to in the chat there. I have a little blurb that's I'll get to that too. A little blurb, a little thing I'm just going to put right here. You can this is let me save it in the right place. Yeah, that's a little more complicated of a situation, but the main part of that is mostly a fee, and and then of course whether or not it's an all-in fee or there's musicians or separate parts. But another part of our income, of course, includes the PRO stuff, so the publishing and owning the masters, and that allows for usually there's you either keep it and then you can use it somewhere else, or there's a window or a grandfather clause where all the rights go back to you. But really, it's pretty easy to research, depending on the budget of the film, what a commensurate fee would be. You hope, you know what I mean? But it doesn't always work out that way. How about you, Eleni? You have any question about the how you get paid for this stuff?
Well, it's it depends. I mean, the short films is a different story. They most of the times they they either don't have a large budget or they don't want to give it to you. But with short films, it's a bit of a fight as far as how much money should go into the music composer, the scoring. And for feature films, I think things are easier, are more set. There's a set, there's a set budget. It's from this to this.
Yeah.
And you know where you're standing. But it depends. Sometimes it's something independent and really really low budget that you watch and you like very much, and you think there's a potential with it, going to festivals around the world, and promoting your work and everything, and you may do it for no money or less, than what you should get. So I think it depends.
Yeah, no, it really does. And there's also all kinds of creative solutions. I think that's one of the other things that's really tricky is that oftentimes some folks are told things at film school which may not, or by some narrow-minded lawyer or otherwise, that doesn't mean there's creative solutions. And there's all kinds of creative solutions.
I mean, you can have less live instruments, to record. You can add some sample. You can add more sound design. There's as you're saying, you can be, you can try to be more creative to get things done in a lower budget. if you
It's
want.
also it's a moving target because as things in the world change, the modalities of money change. Just a very simple example is an orchestral film recording. Once upon a time, when it was transferred to soundtrack, everybody that was involved would get paid. At a certain point in time, the studio started to say, wait a minute, we want to know exactly who's on the selections that we use on the soundtrack that are getting paid. And that can become a nightmare because a given cue might be recorded in multiple parts on separate days and edited after the fact. And so between the studios becoming more interested in these kind of things and the movement towards just computer use for pretty much all functions, you've gotten a lot of adjustment in how money goes around in the time that I've been involved.
I want to jump in with one little thing that's kind of related to touches on that and also acknowledges, the increasing success of women film composers. I mean, Hilda Guttendotter, the way that she works, multi-tracking cello tracks, and then that's what she did on Joker, and then adding orchestral elements, what she did for Chernobyl, all essentially sound elements from the original Chernobyl plant, and then tweaking them, trunking them, et cetera, in pitches and otherwise. And I think it is a messier time, but the same thing happened with American Zoetrope. So you're talking about George Lucas, and where all the people in George Lucas's team, their editors are doing things that are associated with sound design. Sound designers are doing things with edit, and it's all murkier because of the process. So just like as even music publishing has gone through its time where there's murkier waters, I do think there's some aspect of bean counters that will catch up with the technology and the new ways that people are creating. But we're certainly not there yet, and the money's still not there yet. And yet, there's all kinds of creative solutions right now, and that's the hope for the next chapter, I guess, which is probably a decent place to finish things off, unless somebody has any more pressing questions or anything else you want to finish up with, Eleni. And I know it looks like Adam's got some announcements too. So, Eleni, any parting words, I suppose?
Yeah, I actually, because you talked about female film composers, something I wanted to speak about, but there's no time, and maybe we'll have a part B another day if folks are interested.
Why not? You can mention it. Why not? Do we have any time limits, Adam? I'm interested in this issue. So
well, I just came across a few numbers that were very, how do I put it, disturbing, I guess.
Yeah.
So I Googled a search in Wikipedia for female film composers. It gave me a list of 69 female film composers. It was like half a page. And then I put in male film composers. And then it gave me 2,076 male film composers. It was like 200 pages or something like that. And then I also was reading about a study by USC in 2018. It showed that every year from 2007 to 2017, at the top 100 fiction films, only 16 female composers were hired, as opposed to 1,218 men. Also, the year of 2018, the Center for Study of Women in Television and Film revealed that 94% of the top 250 films in the US used male composers.
Yeah.
Also, one more number is, and also 18.4% of the composers registered with PRS, that's the Performing Rights Society in the UK, identify as female. Say out of the top 20 highest earning songwriters and composers in the UK in 2019, only one was a female, and that was Adele. Also, Oscar winners in the category of original music, four female composers. So I think that this, certainly a lack of presence of female film composers in, especially in large budget Hollywood films.
Yeah. And the hope is that Eleni is the next Hilda. That's the hope. So I put a link there to the Alliance for Women Film Composers. I am blessed to know a good few folks in there. Have been mentored by some of them, both Laura Cartman and Miriam Cutler. Was mentored by them at the Sundance Lab. And this is all part of this conversation that's really, really important. So I hope you feel supported. That's the best thing I can say.
Well, the thing is that in the last few years, we have seen organizations that try to support and help women in this in the media field. Actually, I'm on the board of the one of them. It's called the International Alliance of Women in Music. I've been on the board past 3 years. So there's definitely steps towards the right direction. We're just not there yet. I guess we have a long way. But
organizing. You must organize.
Organize. Yeah, organize and then fight and try
and change minds. That's the other thing too. Is we're talking about systematic stuff from the higher ups that needs to be changed. And there are more women executives in film studios, so that's one thing that'll change. And I also just think the success of, unfortunately, that's one part of it too that changes things. Is like, oh my gosh, the different way. I think that's what's so great about Hilda. I don't mean to single her out, but all of of the any preconceptions about that were broken, and that we need more of the breaking down of that, not from the women, but from the people making decisions. Anyone can score any kind of story,
Right.
No, that was
and
really
also,
great.
Also audio engineers, less than 5% are women. I think wherever technology is involved, people feel that women cannot really, make it happen. I think that's the main problem.
Eleni, will you please share your some links to your stuff just so people can check it out? I flooded the gates here, with anybody, once you kind of see all this stuff, you can just share the chat. Save the chat. So there's a little thing next to the chat that says file. You click on that and you'll be able to save it. But I want to make sure everybody had access to your stuff.
I can type in my email address. And
right
whoever of you, want to, get in touch with me, with any more questions or whatever, whatever you'd like, you can email me. And
but besides the how the heck do we do this in an all Zoom or a remote environment, or even if things continue to improve, I think the other thing is that there's probably another chat that should happen. I think that's probably what should happen, is a chat more specifically about this and what the rest of us can do I mean, it just needs to happen. That's where we're at. It's 2021, for crying out loud. So this should be, any other questions? I think we're probably, in a good decent amount of time there, but covered a lot of ground. Any other questions?
I actually just want to make a comment on the women careers in music creative and technical. And that is that it's really helpful, I think, when somebody develops a good media presence, and the media presence. The Icelandic gal you mentioned, she's doing great interviews. Someone I spoke with Eleni about, who was, I think, the first woman to score a full feature film, Suzanne Shiani. If you look it up, there's an appearance that she made on Letterman. She was an early kind of synth pioneer, and she probably got that appearance on Letterman because she was friends with all the guys in the band from hiring them to do music on jingles. And I thought she made the best use of that time that she could. So, people that have a strong individual presence advocacy, I think the idea of having a collective is good, but my experience with collectives of producers and composers is they don't usually last very long. But people who give good interview will, I think, do a lot, for others aspiring to move up.
As far as Susan Tiani, because you mentioned her, Roger, that David Letterman, I don't know if you know that the appearance,
Yes.
they agreed to let her play her music, her stuff, and as soon as she started playing, they got her off, and they went to commercials, and there was a big thing that happened then. I think she left.
Really? Because it was all on film, but I guess they you must have done deeper research than me. She went on to do very well in the new music. In that new wave music idiom. So, but she's a strong player, and there's a lot of videos of her in latter day interviews and giving performances with her bukla. I think you'll see what I mean. She's an extraordinarily confident person.
Yeah, she did also work a lot on commercials, and actually the famous one, the Coca-Cola, where you have the bottles opening and pouring. It was her sound design. She was a lot into the electronic music and the sound effect design.
Really, really great.
I'll shut up now.
No. I think we need another chat. I think that's what we need to do, and bring in more women. Yeah, Stephen. Great.
Hi, Stephen Johnson. I'm chapter head of MFM upstate a little bit, and I just want to thank you, Eleni, and Chris, for your presentation. I really enjoyed it. And I want to thank MFM for putting the webinar series together and Sarab's work. And I just want to also take this moment to announce the next webinar is number 4 in the Music is Essential Zoom series, and it's Richard Miller and myself, Stephen Johnson, speaking of the rhythmic and harmonic history of Brazilian music from choro to bossa nova. And I'm really going to enjoy opening the sensual conversation, that love affair that North American jazz music and Brazilian Afro-Brazilian music, had this extraordinary, relationship, and we all benefited from it from the 60s onwards, So I just wanted to put that in. Thank you for giving me that moment.
Can you give the date and time?
Yeah, thank you. It's on 26th of March at 7, Friday night.
Great, thank you.
Killer time.
And I also want to say thank you to Chris and Eleni and to Sorab. I think you knocked it out of the park. I'm very grateful that all the machinery cooperated and carry on. I mean, this is very uplifting for a Zoom on film music delivered during a pandemic. I feel better than I did when I sat down. So I think that's a good thing. Thank you.
I would like to thank everyone for attending and listening to us, and also I would like to thank Chris, our pilot here, and thank you also to MFM and the Manhattan Producers Alliance.
Thanks.
Yes, let's do part 2. Let's part 2 soon.
Whenever you want, I'm ready.
I love you guys. Thanks for the good work.
Thank you, and thanks again, Roger, and both to MFM and Manhattan Producers Alliance. Both thanks for all these, and Eleni, that was wonderful to get to know your work even better. So love it, and look forward to more sharing the stage and other things with you at drinks soon when we can. So
I'd like to see the rest of your dance piece, actually.
Oh, great! No, great. I'll make sure I'll follow up with some links here.
It was very vulgar to stop it there,
I know.
If the choreographer saw that, they would kill you, I think.
Yeah, no. But here we are. We're all among.
And thanks also to Adam, who's our host.
Yes, thank you, Adam.
Right.
And special hello to Christopher. Christopher, good to see you. And Dan Belmont, who's the brother of David Belmont, I guess. First, I thought it's David himself.
No, that's correct. I thought I knew your name. Hello.
Hi, I'm good doing.
Thank
and
you all
Dave
so
Ross,
much.
see you soon. Thanks.
All righty. Cool.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Eleni.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, thanks a lot, everybody. It was great.
Yeah, thanks. Everybody be safe.
Yes,
Roger.
thanks a lot.
Care.
All right,
Thank
take
you.
care all.
See you, so Rob. Good to see you, brother.